It's Carl Kennedy from The Rods, and you're watching Aftershocks TV.
It's not. I mean, there's one band coming through town, which kind of leads us, and I segue on to our next topic, I guess. And look, Matt and I just jump around on this. We do have a sequence, but it just goes in different directions. But one band that I'm considering going, and there's a lot of hate out there for this band, and Matt knows where I'm going with this one, and he's already going, fuck that. Is Creed, right? Creed, right? And there's a band that, like, most rock and metal fans just go, bleh, Creed, right? And I do like Creed. I'm a Creed fan. I don't like it as much as I used to. I think their music dated a lot, to be honest. It didn't quite hold up. And a lot of 90s music really did date. But as I said, I prefer the Scott Stapp solo stuff, which I really think is good. But here's a band that gets ridiculed. You know, Creed and Nickelback are like the the butt of all the jokes, whatever, and that's fine. And I kind of like Nickelback too. I never apologize for who I like. If you don't like him, that's fine.
Exactly.
Knock yourself out.
Absolutely.
Screw you if you don't like it. That's what I say. But I was looking at a couple of stats on Creed, and with Creed in the 90s, obviously I wasn't living in the US, so I never quite. I just read about it. I wasn't here. I'm here 10 years, and their current tour. They're playing to between 12 and 20,000 people a night. So this is an arena band right there, right? And the local Charlotte concert is in the same place. I think it's in the same place, which is 20. If it's not, it's a 20,000 seater anyway. Now they're playing it with Daughtery and Three Doors Down, and that would be a nightmare for me to look at any of those two bands because I just do not like them. It's two 90s for me, as if Creed or not. Creed are the ninth biggest selling band of the entire decade. Ninth biggest selling. I don't know who else is up there. They've sold 53 million albums worldwide.
Wow, they did.
3 million albums, right?
There's that many albums.
And Human Clay sold 12 million and 20 million worldwide. Yet how does everybody hate them? So that's my question out there.
No, and this is a great. I'm glad you brought this one up. This was actually a really good, I think, discussion to have. I think with Creed, and they were just, it was kind of, I think, well, you got to look at who listens to Creed. Okay, we'll start there.
With the exception of me, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, listen, I'll give you my take on Creed first. Okay,
sure, go for it.
Their first record, I really wasn't that bad. I had the record. I think it was given to me or something. And back then there was still no streaming and everything. So when you got something, you played it to death. And I did play that album a lot, and I did like it. I won't say I didn't.
This Human Clay?
No. This is the first one. My Own Prison, I think it was, right?
I think so.
Because the reason why I did like it was if people would go back and listen to it, because when they hear Creed, you're thinking of Higher with Arms Wide Open, right? That's the first thing people are thinking. But if you go back and you listen to that first record, they've got some really, really solid riffs on there. Mark Tremonti. I mean, he came from a
great player.
Yes, he is a very good player. I mean, he came from a very thrash death metal background. He was into death metal, and they from Florida. That's where all the death metal was at.
Yeah,
it was all
the
Florida.
scene,
Yeah, and so they had some really good riffs on that first record. Now, I didn't love Scott Stapp's voice, but just because it reminded me of like a carbon copy of Eddie Vedder. I mean, it had that yarling sound, that a lot of the Seattle, well, not the Seattle bands, but the Seattle knockoff bands, I should say, had. And then, so I was okay with their first record. When they came out with Human Clay, obviously I was done because that was just way too, it didn't, the edge wasn't there. There was no edge to them anymore. They were on all over, like, so here in the States, they were all over MTV. They were part of the MTV, TRL, countdown every week. You had them, you had Limp Bizkit, you had Korn, you had Orgy, you had those bands. Now, I think the thing with Creed, there's a couple of things. The people, you said that everyone hates Creed. Well, I wouldn't say that, obviously. What it is, it's just like Limp Bizkit. It's just like Puddle of Mud. It's a lot of the metalheads hate Creed. Now, the rock fans, the grunge, people who are into grunge, just your typical radio rock consumers, okay? They're the ones, yes, that love Creed. Because at that point in time, okay, like I was just, all those bands I was just saying on MTV, the Korns, Limp Bizkits, they were, I mean, it was all these urban influences mostly all over MTV. You had some industrial as well, Nine Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, all that, right? not everyone could get into that, but you put some Creed on, it was just rock. It was back to being just rock again.
Yeah.
And it reminded, I think, a lot of the the people who loved the grunge but couldn't get into the new metal and everything. They were like, oh great, finally it's just something that's just reminds us of the Seattle sound. Just like Puddle of Mud. That's why I think Puddle of Mud got big. Now, the difference between, say, a Creed and Puddle of Mud is a couple of things now, too. Puddle of Mud's been putting out albums and touring, since then. They haven't stopped. I think with Creed's situation, obviously, is they haven't been at it for 20 years or whatever it's been. I mean, they only put out, 3 records, I think, right? And that was it.
They had one a couple about 10 years ago. I can't even remember the date on it. But
they did, really?
They actually put one out. Yeah, I can look it up in a second. But I think that this concert, they said, hey, guys, the bank's running a bit low there. Let's do a tour, make some money. Because they're not coming back for the love of each other. They're certainly not coming back for the love of the music. Somebody just made them a big offer and they went, yeah, sure, let's do it. And here's how I'm thinking about it. To your point, Matt, is that I'm a rock and metal. I don't love Creed. I just don't. They're kind of a 6 out of 10, 6.5 out of 10 kind of thing. But if I can get a ticket for $60 ish, I won't be buying a $17 beer. They don't deserve that. But if I can get a ticket for $60 on StubHub or something, and it's an arena venue, I might go. And here, the worst case scenario, if it bores the ass off me after 6 or 7 songs, I just go home. So that's how I look. I don't care if I miss it. I'm not interested. It's kind of like 2 days before I'll decide when we're going to go or not. And if I don't go, whatevs, don't really care.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too, that people didn't like Creed is because of Scott Stapp. I mean, he was. Yeah. I saw Creed once. It was an ex-girlfriend of mine when I was living in San Diego. She was into them, and there was another band I think opening for them. I can't remember who it was, but. She wanted to go see the show, and so I went with her, and we had pretty good seats too. And Scott Stapp was just fucking wasted. I mean, he was completely wasted.
Oh, yeah, he had problems.
Laying down. He laid down half of the show. I mean, literally laid on his back singing. So it was a disastrous show. Not too long, I think, after that is when they kind of disbanded.
Yeah. He imploded,
he did. He imploded. He had a lot of drug, substance abuse issues. I know he was like, I remember there was that one thing about the band 311. He was like, I guess, those guys are supposedly like the nicest guys in the world. He was sitting on one of the guys' wives. So a lot of it had to do with him. And, he just like with people, I mean, we see it too now. I mean, everybody hates Limp Bizkit, right? When you talk about Limp Bizkit, oh, God, Limp Bizkit. Well, you said, they're playing Madison Square Garden. They're as big now as they were back then. So people also like Creed, or the younger kids at that point who were watching MTV and watching TRL, and those were their bands, right? When they grew up with, I mean, just like all our parents' generation, my dad's generation that loved Zeppelin and loved all the '60s stuff, Beatles and everything. I mean, they listened to stuff, Motley Crue and everything in the '80s. Like, what the fuck is this garbage? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's just a lot of what it was just a lot of. That's where I think a lot of the hatred of Creed came from. But of course, when you sell 52 million records,
that's what it said on. Well,
not everybody hates them.
It must be correct. It was on Wikipedia, but you know what I mean. But they're right up there. I know Human Clay is a diamond seller, so that's. But they're one of those bands that just said, bring it up and have a discussion for 10 minutes, and I may or may not go depending on the day that's in it, I guess.
Yeah, but I want to say one more thing, not about Creed, but I'm actually pretty happy though that Creed got back together. And they're doing this tour because they were, if you really think about it, they were kind of, I don't know how it was in Ireland, but here, they were, like I said, they were an MTV band, and they were like the last sort of rock band on MTV. And really just, I mean, because after that, when you think of what came after Creed in terms of rock.
Oh, the 90s. Ooh.
Was the 2000s where you started having
horrendous.
A lot of that Britpop stuff started coming back. You had, or like the indie stuff, the Killers and Kaiser Chiefs and Franz Ferdinand. I don't know if you even know half of those bands, but
I know them, and I can't stand them. I know exactly what you're talking about. I just don't like that shit.
White Stripes. Nope. I'm not into them either. Exactly.
No, I don't like that. I'm looking up that Creed band or album, by the way. It's annoying me now, but I mean, none of that shit. White Stripes. No, I couldn't take any of that crap. And even the 90s overall wasn't great for we know it was like the graveyard decade for metal or whatever, except with the exceptions.
Pantera,
of course, and thank God for bands like that did it. But I think just one of those bands that put it this way: Creed coming to your town, they're not going to attract one new fan. You know what? They don't care about attracting new fans. They just want to sell out seats, make some money, and just come back in 10 years' time.
And
That's
then
all they're
hopefully
interested.
go away again. And then Mark Tremonti can go back to Alter Bridge, which is a good band.
They are a
You
good
know,
band.
yeah.
Sorry,
Miles,
Full Circle was 2009. So they went.
okay.
My Own Prison 97. Human Clay came out in 1999. Weathered was 2001, and they came back with Full Circle in 2009. And I
Okay.
think that's when it was. And that was a comeback, and then it went away. And I think they did a tour a couple of years ago again. I think, and then they came back for this one. So it's just all revenue. Alter Bridge on
Oh,
a
of
break.
course.
They had a window, and they said, "Let's go out and tour, make some cash." So
And why not do it? I mean, I would.
yeah, good for
They'd be
them. I
stupid.
would.
They'd be stupid not to. I mean, and it'll only help bolster the stuff they're already doing with this Alter
Right.
Bridge or Steps solo stuff, as you said. Like I said, that was like the last rock band. So what I'm interested to know, is now that Creed's come back and they're doing their reunion, there's no one else. I can't think of any other band after them that made some noise around that time in the early 2000s, rock band or even metal, obviously. I mean, not really metal, but maybe the hard rock stuff. And there's no one else. I mean, they were like sort of the last like platinum, big time rocks, slash metal band, if you want to call them, before really that MTV completely went away. Streaming was in, like I said, the internet, everything took over with streaming right around that time too. And then of course that's when rock really just started going shoom. So
Oh
it's
yeah.
going to be interesting to see what the industry does next now, because you don't have no more of those bands. That's it. I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe someone in our audience here, when they listen, they could write a comment or send us an email or something about any other bands that I'm missing, because I can't think of it. So it's going to be interesting to see now that they've run out of reprocessing or recycling, I should say, all these older bands for their reunions. It should be interesting to see what they do next. I'm really interested.
You see,
to
that's
see
why
what's next.
classic rock is big business. Because it's
Yes.
like the
Mhm.
bands are like Kiss, just they're like, are they done? Whatever. But Aerosmith, I mean, arguably they're done. Steven Tyler's having health issues again. Nobody really knows what's going on there. AC/DC, if they're lucky, you get one more tour, so they're pretty much done. Even the younger bands like the Maidens and the Bon Jovis, they're coming up on a 40-year career right now. I
Yeah,
mean,
of course.
Maiden are in the 60s. Nicky McBrain had a mild stroke recently, so
Hmm.
Ozzy fucked. Let's be honest, he's never touring again. Maybe a
No.
concert here, or if he's talking about some farewell in Birmingham, his hometown, but he's not able to do it. And then you got the Bowies are gone, and just even the big pop stars. U2 are up there in the 60s right now. So where's the next wave of rock bands coming
There
in
is
behind
none.
them?
That's the
Whether
thing. There is none.
it's not even rock and metal. Where's the next wave of rock bands?
Rock band. Yeah.
Um, I just don't. I'm not seeing it. I mean, obviously, there's a few out there, like the Avenged Sevenfold of the world and stuff like that. They're play arenas, I think, but
Yeah.
I don't gravitate towards them or Five Finger. They don't really
No.
interest me, to be honest.
They're not my type of stuff either. Those
Nope.
bands.
Nope.
I'm not into really. I mean, really, the 2000s is when I started I started going back and just my taste started to change a little bit in the 2000s, where I was getting more into the bands like Nashville Pussy and Super Suckers, sort of like
Sure.
straight up rock bands, a little punk edge, but
Yep.
more with like an AC/DC sort of like style. You know what I mean, with a little punk to it. Yeah, because I really feel like the 2000s was a really almost a lost decade for music. I mean, I would say in 2010 and forward, I've been, there's been a lot better music, I think, coming out in terms of rock. Metal's always been there. Obviously you had all those new wave of American, heavy metal bands, the Chimeras, the Lamb of Gods, obviously from the 2000s and everything.
Yep.
But
Shadows Fall, bands like
Shadows
that.
Fall was a really good band, exactly. But really, I mean, it was pretty. That's what really got me into the whole heavy rock stuff, the stoner rock, the doom, was because of that. Because that was, at least that stuff was taken, once again, influences from the good old days, the 70s. And
I
so
agree.
it's just, yeah. So it's really interesting what's going to happen now that all these bands are either retiring, just fading away, or now these reunions are done and they're squashed. Where is this music coming from now? Then going forward, like I said, I think that's one of the reasons why Live Nation did the On the Road Again thing. But we've already gone there. We're not going to go there again. We've
No,
talked
no, no.
about that.
But even
Yeah.
two more bands super quick were
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
Disturbed and Godsmack. They were two big bands again.
that's true.
They
Godsmack's the
went
one. You're right.
they went into arenas, I guess, but they're also two bands that Godsmack are not bad. Disturbed, zero interested, and I
Mm,
appreciate what they do. And David Draymond is a good figure for metal, and he's outspoken, seems like a good guy and all that, and a good voice. But musically, they do nothing for me. Maybe I'm getting older for that, but that's I think as I started to get older, Matt, I kind of stopped pretty much when you're talking about, and I started at that point getting into Pink Floyd in the last kind of 10, 15 years. I never would have listened to Pink Floyd
interesting.
in
Really.
the 80s and 90s. They just wouldn't have been my band, and now I
Mm,
love them. Same then with like some of the death and brutal and technical death metal. I would have never listened to that either. I discovered that later in life because I needed another avenue to discover
hmm
new music, and that became it. And now, like, I can't imagine not having a death metal band on a couple of times a day, or Pink Floyd in the background. I'm doing something but I think you get older, your musical tastes just alter, or you get
Oh,
influenced, or
sure.
you're either get more angry or more mellow. I don't know, one or the other.
hmm No, you're totally right, and I do the same thing. I mean, and that's what's kind of great though in a way, is because there's so much, especially in the 70s and 80s, there's so much money in the business, and they were just
Mm,
signing so many
that's right.
bands that half of these bands I didn't even hear of, and I've discovered them over the last 10 years or so, and I'm like, holy shit, man! There's so much good undiscovered music out there from all these decades. It's like
Mm,
one of those things. Like if music stopped now, if no more music was recorded, if all the the formats went away, the platforms, the vinyls, the CDs, everything, and it was like, okay, there's no more music. You just got to deal with what you got out there now. No problem,
yeah, I'd be
because
happy with that.
there's
Yeah,
still plenty to discover that I haven't.
yeah.
I mean, so many albums. I mean, even some legacy bands. Some of their albums I haven't really, I guess, dug deep into a lot of times. Just like anything, you've heard of them, but you never, a Priest. I mean, or these Maidens. I mean, there's so many different records from all these legacy bands that sometimes you skip over one or two, and you're like, holy shit, I didn't really listen to this album. You
But
go
also
back,
what
listen
happened.
to it, and boom, yeah.
But you're
Mm-hmm.
right, man. You look at a band like, just say, Lynyrd Skynyrd or Molly Hatchet or
Mm-hmm.
whoever, Blackfoot, take your pick, right? So
Yeah,
if somebody asked me, do I like all of those three bands, I would say, yeah, I do. So if
yeah,
somebody said to me, name their albums from 1974 to 83, I go,
yeah,
not really sure about that. And then
yeah.
it makes me think, well, what am I missing then? I mean, if I like the four albums that I have on my phone or whatever, why aren't I going into it? I just don't have the time, whatever. But so for me, there's a lot of those legacy bands I haven't even discovered yet, like a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
Creedence Clearwater or Steely Dan and shit like that. That's
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal music. But I
Oh, yeah.
only know maybe one or two albums or a handful of tracks. So I could spend the next 5 years discovering old music without listening to one new track. There's just
Exactly.
and I think, and I don't know if we want to talk about it tonight, with streaming, have access to so many, like, like I said before, you've got your phone and you've got 74 million songs literally at your fingertips. We think about the technology of that, and now we can discover so many bands and so much discography in those
Exactly.
albums that you missed back in the day, and you can listen to it, walk your dogs, put on your AirPods and go, no, I don't like it, delete. And
Mm-hmm.
it's good and bad, because it makes music very disposable, but it's opening up a world to me, or anybody for that sake, that just didn't exist even 5, 6 years ago, 10 years ago, certainly didn't
Mm-hmm.
exist.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's bingo, man. I mean, it really is, and that's the keys. Like you said, we've got it all right at our fingertips. We don't have
Yeah.
to go to the record store and thumb through
Nope.
the vinyl record, or used records and find a gem. You just click it on your screen. So I mean, like you said, yeah, it makes it a little more disposable, maybe not as exciting
Mm.
than when you discover and find something and take it and listen to the whole thing, the whole album at once. But
Yeah.
it's there. Like you said, we've got so much there. But it is, like I said, I'm just so interested. I mean, I don't want time to go by too fast, but I'm very, very eager to find out what's going to happen now
Yeah.
after, all these bands have pretty much had their reunions, had their, their
Farewells and all that kind of
farewell
thing.
tours and all that stuff, whatever we want. Yeah, exactly. So
Mm.
should be interesting. Speaking, you just brought up something about streaming. You sent
Mm.
me something today too about an interesting stat about streaming,
Yeah, I
right?
was just stumbling around on a couple of websites today, and it stopped me in my tracks. I'm just going to read some of this, and it said 4 trillion songs. I can't imagine counting to 4 trillion were
Mm,
streamed in 2023, which is at 22% more than 2022. Right?
mm,
Think about that, 4 trillion songs. And then I said, well, who's listening to what? It's not about breaking it down as to what the albums are. But it was one of the things that was driving me to think about it. And I did a kind of an in-depth, well, what's driving streaming? And it's similar to what I just started. It's pure convenience. It's utter convenience. It's human beings just being lazy bastards. And yet you're just a path of least resistance. Our brain are hardwired to do that. And there's no, obviously physical product is gone for the most part. I know there's a bit of a resurgent in vinyl, even cassette tapes and CDs or whatever, but it's never going to go back to the way it was. And even MP3 players. I mean, who has an iPod anymore in their pocket?
I know, right?
I've got an iPad. We all have probably 2 or 3 lying around in the drawer.
Use them.
Yeah, they're there. You don't need them anymore. And I think what's also driving the number is you have personalized algorithms. So then you're listening to Apple Music and I listen to, the new Aborted song, and it goes, oh, he likes this. Here's another one that you might like, Tom. So it's constantly pushing music in your direction. It's like an MTV of the day. It's pushing it at you. And then if you look at the worldwide audio and video, which is a combined streaming, that's actually 7.1 trillion individual songs, tracks, whatever you want to call it. And it's all, and then, but it's even if you can, again, it's a world of convenience that we just take for granted. So you're sitting in your Sunday morning having a cup of coffee. Hey Siri, play me some. See, now my fucking phone is listening to me. Hey Siri, play me some Sunday morning music. Hey Siri, play me some death metal. You don't even have to look for it, and it just starts hitting it. So they're classed as plays. See, see.
Oh, look at that. Yeah,
here's Sunday morning music. See.
Oh wow.
Just right up, unbelievable. But then. Jesus, it's actually
still
playing Sunday morning music. Whoever sticks season are, by the way. Yeah, unbelievable. Whether I like it. Now I'm in an algorithm. It's going to think I like Sunday morning music.
That's it. And now they're going to feed you all that shit there. Now. Exactly. Yeah.
But forever. But then there's some challenges for that, like the compensation for artists. This has come up 1,000 times, and I think Spotify, you have to get a song played 1,000 times to get a royalty from Spotify. And I think it's like $3 or something. So if you hit 999, you don't get a penny. Think about that, right?
It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And also then because you've got so much access to music, like we have as people, as consumers, how does a lesser known band have a shot of getting noticed in all of that noise out there? I just think it's unbelievable. And just one other thing too is that I think when you could say, hey, SIRI, I can't say because they'll talk to me, but play 80s hard rock music, play whatever. There's less engagement with the music. It's just making it easy and just constant play all the time. So listen, I personally love the technology, because I listen to more rock and metal now than I ever did because I have access to it. But what am I missing? And a lot of the artists don't get paid because I pay $15 a month for Apple Music and I get 6 people on that plan. I used to spend $15 a week on one CD back in the day. So that money is not going somewhere. So there you go.
Well, and like you said, I mean, you were saying that the reason why, stream is because, humans were lazy. I think it's just because it's free. I mean, for the most part, like you said, I spend $10, for my Apple. I mean, it's basically free, right? I'm listening to all this shit. And I can get everything for $10. So I think it's just that is the most. Listen, that's the number one. I think convenient factor. I mean, obviously it's easy just to put it on our phone, but the fact that it's free. Look, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Look, we've all music connoisseurs like ourselves that love everything about rock and metal and just music. Prior to streaming, I mean, we think about how much money we spent on CDs and records. A lot of money. It's one of the things when I got into doing, even my label and everything, or just in the business, that was the one thing I wanted. I didn't really want to get paid for anything. It was like, I want free music because I'm sick of paying for it. And I'm sick of paying for music that wasn't good. Let's be honest. I mean, we buy these records and, most of the records you get, if you can get 2 to 3 really good songs on it, okay, you would try your best to force yourself. I know I did. If I spent $18 to $20 on a CD, I'm listening to that thing to death, and I'm making sure there's got to be at least 2 to 3 songs on that record that I'm gonna get some satisfaction out of. Now, I'd force myself. It's funny because sometimes I go back and listen to those records, and I listen to them and say, it was like this. I mean, this really wasn't that great a song, but because I paid so much money for it, I wanted to like it so much. That I would kind of be like, I like that. Hell yeah. I almost forced myself to think it's good. Now when I go back, I'm like, what am I kidding? That was not good at all. But I think that to me was the number one thing that I enjoy about streaming. It's just because I'm not spending money on bad songs. Listen, that's why these days, I know a lot of artists complain, and I get it, I understand it. But if you put out a great record, okay, 10 songs, 8 to 10 songs, not everyone's got to be obviously a great song, but they, just
Sure.
somewhat catchy, somewhat good. Okay, my money's well spent. People will still buy those records on the CD or on vinyl. People will. Like I still buy vinyl, but I only buy it for the records that I know are really good. That I know I want to spin on that full. Put put it on the turntable and to spin that thing in full. Listen to both sides in full. Not a record that I know there's one or two good songs that are on the third song, so I got to kind of take the needle and then get to the third song. I'm not going to do that. So that's why I usually only buy vinyl from records that to me are top to bottom pretty much stellar. I
And you know
won't
what,
buy.
but
Yeah.
I can't imagine having to see think about physical product for me because and again I've got hundreds of CDs. We spoke about this before,
Mm.
picture discs and vinyl and cassette tapes, whatever, and I still have them. But I can't imagine having to stay, me personally, having to stay in the one room to listen to it because I've got a
Mm.
stationary player. All my CDs are stacked up like the olden days. Like 99% of my music or podcasts are listened to moving around doing something,
Sure.
walking the
Mm-hmm.
dogs, driving, going to the gym, going for a run, mowing the
Mm-hmm.
lawn in the summertime, whatever. It's all, I'm never in the one spot listening to music. And even if I'm doing something mundane around the house, I just listen to, Aftershocks, to see what we sounded like last week, or the Classic
Mm.
Metal Show, or whatever, some other podcast I listen to. But listen, that's each to their own. If you're a physical product guy, fantastic. If I'm not, I'm a digital guy. I completely moved from that. But who cares? That's the thing. Who cares? As long as you're supporting the bands,
Yeah, I
uh,
agree.
you're going to the concerts, you're
That's
contributing
the
to the
key.
scene.
Mm-hmm.
This is our
Exactly.
contribution to the scene.
That's
Being
right.
on here, having a podcast, and just talking about music. And if you're not doing it one way or doing another way. So even bands that you don't like, if you think Creed are a shitty band, fine, don't care. They're still out there waving the rock flag, and I'll take that all day long. That's important to me.
I agree with you on that. It is important. You're right. I mean, whether you like a band like Creed or some of these whatever bands,
That's fine.
as long as they are exactly waving that rock flag and they're not changing their sound or they're still just keeping, like you said, just it is important these days waving a rock flag. And it's another whole topic, but um, we've seen so many, of course, genres over the years, whether it be jazz or blues or soul, gospel, all this kind of music that was really big folk music back in the day, 40s, 50s, 60s, right? It's not part of our mainstream, music anymore.
No,
When rock came
absolutely
in,
not.
that took it over, and now rock's in the same boat. I mean, rock is right there too. It's not dead. I don't think any of those genres are ever going to be dead, but it's not part of our culture also anymore.
No.
It doesn't affect our culture anymore. I mean, it's not the young kids are not listening to rock. They're not playing it. I mean, we used to sit there, air guitars, kids. We would dream about being a rock star, just
Yeah.
being on stage, being a guy in Kiss or Def Leppard or whatever. Nowadays, kids aren't thinking that. It's more about they want to be a solo artist, have their own YouTube channel, and want to have a solid Instagram channel, all the social media. Obviously that's where it's all done through, and it's very individualized too. The great
Mm.
thing about rock or just band music in general was that band taking 3+ people, putting them together,
Yeah.
creating something that was special that only those 3 people could create. And that's just kind of like you said, not really there as much. So I'm with you on that. Whether you like a band like Creed or whatever, the fact is they're still out there, they're playing, and it's rock music, and
It
it's
is,
heavy
and
music too. Yeah.
it is, but even music that's like, you take a band like U2, obviously an Irish band, and I like U2. I'm not an Uber fan. I like him. I do genuinely. I saw them a couple of times and they're great live, and they just did the Sphere recently in Vegas. I get it.
Hmm.
But I had them on in my home a couple of weeks ago, actually. I think over the holidays, and I had it on a big TV screen. And was playing like a live concert. It wasn't Sphere, it was whatever. And one of my kids, she's 17. One of her friends came in, and I just said, "Do you know what those guys are?" And they said, and they were listening, going, "No, you
Yeah.
too." And
See.
they go, "Who?" So they
Yeah.
were
See.
17. I had
Wow.
no idea
No
who you
idea.
two were. Zero,
Hmm.
no idea. And they're arguably like one of the biggest, if not one of the biggest bands ever. Like literally, albums wise and all that. And the 17-year-old kids, because music is not important to most kids today. They just like a poppy tune. They have it on their
Hmm.
AirPod on shuffle or whatever on their phone for a couple of weeks, and then the next hit song comes in, and this one is gone. It's completely disposed of. Can you imagine listening to an album like or a band, and then someone better comes along, and you just push them aside, and then they come in and take their place? It's like this revolving door of just good
Yeah,
songs, all sound the same, all generic, all bullshit, all Taylor Swift stuff, whatever it is.
exactly. Yep.
Um, or some of this R&B stuff and all that kind of music, which I just don't understand. I won't say anything in case I get in trouble, but I just don't get it. It's disposable. But kids have no investment. Like, I mean, yes, we're old fucks. I get it, but I can remember opening up the albums and looking at it and reading the liner notes and smelling it. Like, seriously, you just got
Yep.
so immersed in the goddamn music that you were just, and you'd run home to play it. I remember my local record store would have been 15, 16 and a half to maybe 3 miles, and the new Maiden album would be out. I would literally run in to get it, pick it up, hand over my money, and run back home again to play it. I just
Sure.
couldn't wait to hear
Couldn't
it.
wait.
Or now we pop it on your phone or whatever. I get it, but there's no investment in music anymore. You like it for 5 minutes. Next.
No, it's true. It's well. That begs the question then too. Of course, is it the parents? Have the parents just in our our generation have we done a bad job with
Probably.
music with our kids? Listen. I got a 9-year-old daughter. She just turned 9, and like you just explained her to a T. It's Taylor Swift. I mean, listen. I've got this studio right here. I've got instruments everywhere. She takes piano lessons. So she does it every week. I think her personality is just more mellow. She's not really. I think someone maybe later in life she'll get into rock or something. And listen, when she was young, I was playing her Kiss. I remember playing her. What was I would play? I Love It Loud, or Lick It Up, and she would hum it as a a 2-year-old. She'd be lick it up in the back seat.
Yeah.
I would just try to get pop. Just some catchy poppy rock stuff. And I was thinking, okay, I'm well on my way to it happening, maybe getting her into it. But of course, you get a little older, and when you start discovering her own stuff,
Yeah, it's gone.
it was gone. I even tried with the Beatles. I figured, okay, Beatles are always a good thing for kids. Maybe let's try that. I tried so much different stuff, and it's kind of like I've got this stuff all around. I got my posters everywhere. She'll see these bands. Maybe she gets a little older. Maybe it changes, but like you said, it's just not that important. Like you said, we were so invested because it was also, once again, it was also part of our. It was on the radio, it was on the TV. Rock was a popular thing. It was our culture was big in it, and so now music in general really isn't big. And if it is, like you just said, it's the R&B, it's the Taylor Swift, and that's.
I think, but I think the thing is we're music fans. Like we get like we read books and we go to the concerts and we do this whatever. So we're music fans. They're just fans of music, and that's a big difference. It's just something to do whilst they're doing their homework. Seriously, that's all music is to them. Or they like a little song if they're with their friends.
Background noise or something.
Just background noise. They have no idea probably who it is. It just sounds like a beat. Whereas, if I was sitting in sitting at a traffic stop, and I could if I heard metal coming from somewhere, I'm putting the window down, going, "What? Where's that coming from?
Exactly.
And what is it?" Because I want to hear who it is. I mean, if my kids heard a pop song, boom, 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 they couldn't give a shit. They don't care. Even if they heard it, it wouldn't enter their heads. Whereas I have to know who he is, and if I can make eye contact, he's getting the horns. So that's that's just how it is,
Yeah, man, I know. It's man, we sound old, man. That's all I know. Talking about this stuff, we sound old.
That's
But
because
hey,
we are. So I don't.
we
care.
are.
Fuck it.
We are. No, it is. We are. And the thing is like, yes, that was the heyday of music, and not even just rock. Just of music in general. Because even the pop stars, like I always said, even the pop artists, it wasn't beats. Now it's just beats. Then it was music. I mean, Prince was an amazing musician.
I saw him live. He did a guitar solo. It was like watching Joe Satriani. It was unbelievable. I never saw anything like it. It was phenomenal because I wasn't expecting it. But even like I saw Michael Jackson live and Prince. Not that I was fans. I'm not a fan of any of those artists that were just there nearby and they were big stars, so I said they'd go. But even go back in bands like Duran Duran or Spandau Ballet and all. They were good musicians. They were pop players. I get it. And some of their stuff is not bad. The Police is a prime example.
Police. Oh,
Great
God, yeah.
musicians.
Great musicians. Yep.
But, look, they play their instruments. They weren't just dancing around to some stupid backing beat
Exactly.
that, you know, a tape or whatever. But whatever. Look, this is really showing our age. But then we're not here to attract a new audience.
No, we're
talking
not.
to people
Exactly.
our age who are probably not on their head going, "Yeah, Matt, fuck yeah, Matt, tell it how it is." But you know, we just come on here once a week for 90 minutes, 2 hours, have a beer, and just talk about whatever. You know, so that's it.
Yeah.